I'd like to do today is to give some general thoughts about graduate schools in the U.S., perhaps compare them a little bit to other parts of the world, and to applying to undergraduate institutions, and then talk about some of the specifics, the requirements, the qualifications, the strategies as you think about this, if this is something you're interested in, or someone you know, a family member who wants to apply to a good graduate school in the United States. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand. If I speak too quickly or you would like me to repeat something, you could do the same thing. I don't mind interacting as we go along. If you want to save a question until the end, that's fine too. So we can do this as we go along here. I particularly like working with small groups. I'm not sure if we're connected to an online audience today. Last time there was a group in China that was watching. There may be a group in China. So if there is, let me say hello and thank you to as well. So some general information about applying to graduate school in the U.S. So the requirements, the deadlines, the materials, the details, the objectives, the strategies are all very different depending upon the school, not just the university. So different universities operate different ways, and then different schools within the universities operate. So you need to think about what are the specifics you need, what are the strategies you want to work on. They're going to match you well with the university that you would apply to. And this is very important. You may be the best student in the world, you may be a genius, you may be great at some particular field of study, but if you don't match the objectives and the interests of the department or the school or the university that you're applying to, you're not going to get in. They'd love to have you as a student in a program that they offer or they specialize in, but they're not looking for a student who's just great at something they don't teach much about, or already have people that can mentor you or understand what it is that you're doing. So, and then the reverse is also somewhat true. You may not be the best student. You may not have the strongest background, but if your ideas, your career objectives, your presentation, your enthusiasm is a perfect match for the school that you're applying to, you may be a lesser quality student, but you still get admitted. And I'll try to give some examples of that later. So that it's really about matching up the school. All right. An important thing to keep in mind when applying to American universities is there's some overlap, but there's a big distinction between an academic or scholarly career and a professional career, depending upon your objectives and what these schools are that offer these programs. If you're interested in becoming a scholar, a professor, a researcher, working in a laboratory or a think tank or a government institution, then you're going to be thinking more about sort of the academic scholarly career, which is what we call arts and sciences. Sciences, mathematics, English, literature, philosophy, languages, linguistics, all those kinds of fields, history, politics, etc. Those are the academic fields where you study to learn as much as you can deeply about the theory behind these fields of study. The professional schools are exactly that, training to generally to earn a certification in that field. It could be business, it could be government, it could be law, it could be medicine, it could be architecture, but it's more of a professional career track where you're learning specific skills, deep skills, important skills that will help you get a job in the profession that you choose. So there's the professional approach, the professional career versus the academic career that you want to think about. And normally in graduate schools, the arts and sciences part of the graduate school is the heart and soul of it. Whereas the other schools, the law, the business, the government, medicine, journalism, education, etc., all are distinct and on a sort of a satellite around the school. Now, they make up an important part of the whole university, but individually they're distinct and quite separate from arts and sciences. So you want to think about what it is that you want to do. Are you interested in the basic theory, the understanding deeply behind the particular subject you're in, whether it's biology or whether it's history or whether it's anthropology? Or are you interested in becoming a lawyer or a doctor or an architect or something like that? And that's going to make the big difference in where you apply. The other thing is you need to think about whether your objectives match the program that you're applying to. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you may be a great student, you may have a terrific background, you may be a genius, but if you don't match your interests with the program you're applying to, they're not going to admit you. This morning I was speaking to a young student from Guangzhou, a student from Southern China Agricultural University. He's got a very good background, a very strong program he's been in. His grades are excellent, his GRE score is terrific. He's been studying biochemistry and biomedical sciences. And he was interested in getting an MA, a master's degree in biology at a top American. He wanted to go to one of the top 10 universities in the United States for a master's degree. And the thing is, he's well qualified, he's smart, it's not a famous university that he goes to, but he has the background, the qualifications to get into a top university in the US, except none of the top universities in the US offer a master's degree only in these arts and sciences graduate schools, like biology or history or chemistry or whatever the field may be. They only offer a PhD. So they're interested in very serious students. If you want interested in arts and sciences, then you have to be serious and focus on a career that's going to develop you strongly as a scholar. If he wanted to take his biological background at an undergraduate program in South China and apply to the School of Public Health, they do have a master's degree. So you can take what you have in biology and apply that to a professional career. But he was thinking, well, I just want to apply to the top 10 universities in the United States in biology to get a master's degree. Well, he could apply to all these programs, he would never get in because they don't offer a master's degree. They only offer a PhD in the arts and sciences. So it's very important to match your objectives to what it is that they're doing. And then another big distinction between the scholarly career and the professional career is that in most schools, at least in the United States anyway, it's the department in the School of Arts and Sciences, and it's the faculty in that department that decides whom to admit. So if you're applying for linguistics, or if you're applying for comparative literature, or if you're applying for geometry, the faculty in that department are going to read the applications and discuss among themselves who gets admitted. If you're applying to a professional school, business school, law school, architecture school, design, whatever, all these other professional schools, it's a group of professional administrators that review the application. So the audience is entirely different. So that in the professional schools, if you're applying to medical school, there's going to be a group of people who are going to look at your application and say, does this person have what it takes to come here, learn well, and then launch into a career that's going to be in medicine and be successful. Whereas in arts and sciences, they're going to look at, it could be faculty, so their bias is towards scholars. They're going to appreciate an application that's much more academic, much more scholarly than career focused, much more than job focused, much more involved in theory. And they're going to be more interested in a student that applies to an area that they know something about, that they are more familiar with. So you need to look at the faculty in the department, see what they specialize in, if you're applying here in some subfield of chemistry, but most of the department works over here, again, if you're not within range of what their interests are, they're not going to accept you because they need to mentor you. They have to guide you as you go through your graduate program. So you've got to look at the match very closely and think about your audience. Are you writing an application to a scholar, or are you writing an application to someone who's going to judge you based upon what it is they think you'll do in your job and your career in the future, whether it's as an entrepreneur or whether it's working in a large business that you step into, whether it's accounting, whether it's government service or whatever. So again, that makes a big difference. Those are important. So sorting this out ahead of time and thinking ahead, doing your homework before you apply to the graduate program is very important. Otherwise, you might as well look at the sky and throw your application up in the air and say, I hope it hits the right place. You need to really focus your application not only on the university, the school, the department, and the people in the department in order to get to where you would like to go. Okay, now, unlike schools in China, Asia, most of Europe, in fact, other parts of the world, Latin America, in the U.S., it's much more individualized. They're looking for what it is about the individual who's applying to the program and what do they bring to their application and to the university that would make them a good fit for the university. So, for example, in particular, you may be more familiar with China, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, and elsewhere. There's an entrance exam. And the main part, or the main qualification, or the only qualification to get into a good program is getting a high enough grade on the entrance exam. The Gaokao for college, of course. In U.S., there's of course a standardized test like a GRE or a GMAT or LSAT or MCAT for medical school. But there are many other qualifications as well. So they look at your transcript, they look at your presentation, they look at your essays, your career proposal, your research proposal. They look at your work experience, they look at your outside activities, they look very closely at your letters of recommendation, and in some cases they do a personal interview as well. So they want to get a much more well-rounded sense of who you are as a person, as in addition to being a good student or a good scholar or a good potential professional career person. So there are many different ways to do this. I like to say that in the U.S., applying to college and graduate school is more like a PowerPoint presentation. The responsibility is on you to show them what you can do, what your potential is. You have to be able to communicate well. In Asia and in Europe, you have to pass the exam. That's what counts. So in that sense, in Asia or Europe or elsewhere, it's simpler. Of course, the exam is very difficult and it's very hard to prepare for the exam. And there's so much to study and to learn, and people work very hard at that. I'm not saying it's easy to get in, but I think that understanding what it takes to get in is easier. Whereas in the U.S., it's complicated, it's confusing. What's the right way to focus? What should I emphasize? What should I focus on? How do I pitch this? What are the way to do this? So you really have to think of it as like a PowerPoint presentation. And what is your audience? Who are you talking to? How will they respond? Will they like you? It's not just are you smart. Will they like you? That's going to matter because it's people on the other side of this, not just looking at their grade for the exam. So there's not just one way to get into graduate school in the U.S. There's the front door, the side door, through the basement, through the back door, through the roof, all these different angles. You need to show what your best strength is. What is the way that you're going to add to this? And they're not looking at for a two-dimensional person. They're looking for a three-dimensional person that will help them understand. Okay, and then they also look for a certain amount of diversity. So in the exam system, they look for the smartest students. Of course, graduate schools in the U.S. look for smart students too, but they also look for people that have a different background, have different experiences, different objectives. They want to know that you're going to be an interesting and good citizen of the classroom, the campus, the laboratory, the field research, and the university. So they want to know that you're going to come in and mix well, ask good questions, and engage in good debate, and be an active participant, a great citizen of the university, as well as being a great student. If all you're ever going to do is go to the library and study, they're not so interested. You may be a great student, but if that's all you do, it's not going to be as interesting for other people or for the faculty there. All right, so now, again, looking at the division, we have the professional career and we have the academic career. In the research career, they're looking for the academic career, they're looking for you most closely at the research proposal. So it's not just a matter of saying, I want to become a chemist or I want to become an historian. They want to know specifically, first, what the field is, what the subfield is, and then what the area of special interest is. What are the questions you're going to ask? What are the things you're going to analyze? What are the ways you're going to think about that's new in this? Are you going to agree with a certain line of thinking or disagree with a certain line of thinking? And how will you bring those points of view to the table when you go to your graduate school? So it's providing analysis is not just doing research. Research is one thing, but how do you analyze that research? It's going to be very important. Asking the right questions that lead to new questions. As Professor Nueno spoke just a few minutes ago, what were the questions he came to in thinking about opening a new graduate school or getting a graduate school like Harvard Business School to adopt a new idea? So what are the ideas, what are the questions, what are the analysis that will make sense? You can learn something, a particular field of study, but then it just sits where it is. What are the new ideas, what are the ways that you can take it off in different directions? They're going to add to the quality and the value of the educational experience. The other thing you need to look for, again, is thinking about your audience. If you're interested in Chinese history and the history department you're applying to is primarily focused on Western history, well, you may be, again, a great student, you may have some wonderful ideas, but if they don't have a specialist on Chinese history in the department, there's no one there to mentor you. So you need to find a good match for you and what you're doing so that there's going to be somebody who will understand, appreciate, and guide you through your graduate studies in that field. Okay? And then you need to think about the mission of the department. I don't think there's any department in any university in the world that says they do everything under the sun at the highest possible level. But even the top universities, all of the top universities, Ivy Leagues, MIT, Stanford, Duke, Chicago, others as well, they all have they all have their particular focus, where they are strong in some areas, or they may be strong in multiple areas, but none of them is going to say they're strong in every area. So you want to find the university that is going to be strong in the area you're focused on, or at least write your application to the audience there, to the people that are in that program, so that they will understand and appreciate what it is you're trying to do. Okay, now that was more on the academic side of things. On the professional side of things, if you want a career as a journalist, if you want a career as an educational administrator, if you want a career even as a theologian in divinity school, you want to become a priest, study about religion. Well, maybe not become a priest, but study about religion. Or if you're interested in studying about law or government or medicine, whatever, public health. What they're going to look more closely at, rather than the research proposal, is the statement of purpose. What is it that you bring to the table that you've done already? What is it that you want to accomplish, and what will you do for the school that you're going to? And then what will you do with that afterwards in your career? So they want a good, clear statement of purpose. You may change your mind 10 times before you actually go through all of this. But at least for your application, for your presentation, you want a clear, logical, understandable, well-articulated, and doable application for what your professional career is going to look like. And again, you need to know the mission of the school. Schools are going to vary a great deal geographically. If you think about New York City, so what kind of professional schools are going to be strong in New York City? Well, it's where the UN is, so it's a big international city. It's where a lot of the international institutions are. It's Wall Street, so it's going to be strong in business and finance and accounting and entrepreneurship and a bunch of things like that. It's a media center too. So if you're interested in media, television, movies, and things like that, a graduate school in New York City is going to be a place where a professional school in New York City is going to be strong in that. If you talk about Los Angeles, it's right next to Hollywood. Makes sense that they're going to have strong connections with Hollywood. You talk about Stanford or UC Berkeley, well, they're right next to Silicon Valley. So they're going to have much more in common with people who are interested in information technology or artificial intelligence or whatever, depending upon where you go. Now, again, this is not necessarily limit to a university, but geography makes a difference as well in terms of the mission of the school, what is the strength of the school, what are they able to do. So again, your statement of purpose, your career. I'm just squeezing this thing, it's jumping around. So it's your statement of purpose should be clear, articulate, analytical, and I advise you to have somebody edit it. Have somebody else look at it. It could be a friend, could be a mentor, could be a family member, could be a professor. Everybody in the world needs to work on their writing. Everybody can improve their writing, with whatever the language is. Harvard professors, when they write a book or they write a paper or a research paper or something like that, first they write a draft and then they show it to their friends or they show it to their publisher. And they get comments back. They change things. So it goes through a process. Now, I'm not saying that you should borrow somebody else's writing. You shouldn't plagiarize what you do, but you should get opinions from other people to give you an idea on that. So it's not like you have to do this on your own. You should, of course, write, should be your writing and your ideas, but you can ask somebody else to help you to sharpen the ideas, the presentation, the focus, the way it's understood. And then, of course, you want to make sure it's related to the objectives of the program. If you're interested in business and you want to apply to MIT, you should keep in mind that MIT, of course, is an engineering and science and technology school. So their business school is going to have a strong emphasis on econometrics. How do you measure a lot of things in business? What is the relationship of the technological development to business? You think about big manufacturing companies. There's finance, and there's the technology side, there's the sales side of things. The technology has to be, the finance and the management has to be very closely in tune with what the technology is doing. So you're going to get more of that at a place like MIT Business School. Other schools, again, are going to be stronger on different things. Harvard Business School does a lot of things, but general management is what they focus on. There are some schools, Boston College Business School is famous for its finance program. There are other programs that are famous for other kinds of things, international business or whatever. So you want to make sure that your interests are in line with what the objectives of the program. Some general information about the difference between undergraduate and graduate. Most people have been through an undergraduate program, fewer people have been through a graduate program. In any graduate program that I know of, certainly any good one, they take you more seriously than they do undergraduate. In the U.S. anyway, undergraduate is general education, where you're learning to think, to ask questions, to debate, to express yourself well. But for graduate school, they expect you to be serious about what it is you want to learn, about the career you want to approach. They want you to be professional, which includes ethics, professional ethics. They want you to be committed. You can go to undergraduate school and do a lot of things on the side. With graduate school, there's a high demand that you be focused on what you're doing, at least while you're in the graduate school. They don't want you starting a lot of businesses or doing other things on the side. You should be focused. You have other interests. You may have hobbies and things you want to do, but they want to know that you're really committed. The demand is they teach to the career-oriented, and they expect you to be involved. Now, something else that should be known about graduate schools in the U.S. is you only get an A or a B. If you get a C, you get kicked out one time. So that's another way that they measure how serious you are. As an undergraduate, you could fail a course, and it just goes on your transcript, or you can take it again and get a better grade. You get an F one time, and a C, D, or F in graduate school means they can't be bothered with you. So it's, again, a much more serious environment. And then, as I mentioned, the difference between plagiarism and cheating versus editing. Everybody needs editing. Everybody needs to improve their writing. Everything can be improved when it's after the first time it's written. But you have to be careful you don't step over the line and take the words or the thoughts, particularly the ideas of others, and put them as your own. It's not that hard. If you like an idea that you see from somebody else, you simply have to notate it. You have to say, well, this idea is very close to my own idea or things I was thinking about, but somebody else came up with it first, and this is where they produced it, either in a book or a journal or an article on TV. You heard it somewhere else. You just have to say where you got this idea from, and then you're safe. But if you put it out like, I thought of this, and you don't recognize somebody else who did it, then that's plagiarism or cheating, and they won't accept that. And you can get kicked out for that as well. That fits in with professional ethics and the rest of it. Financing we can talk about, may or may not be an issue. A lot of the best universities, of course, have a lot of financing available for graduate students. Some of these professional programs are very expensive. You can come out of graduate school with several $100,000 worth of debt. There are different ways to finance that, there's different ways to look at it. May or may not matter to you, but that's another issue. All right, so just to quickly review here, so the kinds of graduate and professional programs. So the one distinction is the arts and sciences, which includes the arts, the humanities, social sciences, engineering, etc. These are what you find in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. This is where it's hardcore academia and scholarship. This is where they're interested in, there may be applied parts of the program, but they're interested in theory. They're interested in deep analysis and highly developed scholarly approaches to your program for a career that's going to be something as a scholar. And then for the professional career, there's business, government, law, medicine, public health, education, architecture, journalism, divinity, communications, etc. And you need to think, what is your challenge? What is it that you want to accomplish? Several years ago, I worked with a young lady from Shanghai. She had come directly to the U.S. for college. She went to the West Coast. She went to a university, very undistinguished university. Hardly anyone's ever heard of it in the U.S., never mind in China. But she wanted to come to the U.S. to go to college, and it was what she could be admitted to and what she could afford. When she graduated, she went to New York City and started her own business. And it was an education consulting business. She brought groups to the U.S. for short-term programs. She advised other individuals on how to apply to American universities. She worked with that for a number of years. And then she applied to Harvard Graduate School of Education. Now, and she asked me for advice on, how she wanted to go to Harvard Graduate School of Education, UPenn, Stanford, or Columbia Graduate School of Education. Her first choice was Harvard, and she asked me for help on that because I'd spent most of my career working at Harvard University and was familiar with what they're looking for. But anyway, she developed her application based primarily on her experiences in the U.S., coming to the U.S. directly from China and what it was like to learn in that different environment, with different expectations. And then she spent a lot of time talking about what she learned as an entrepreneur and what she learned about education. So she wasn't just in the practice of education, but she used it as a laboratory to study, to develop ideas, to see what worked and what didn't work, and what more she could learn if she went to graduate school. Well, based upon her interests and her personality, because she was an outgoing, interesting kind of person, she explained herself well, she was admitted to Harvard Graduate School of Education. So her academic background was weak, relatively speaking. The competition is very tough to get into Harvard. But her professional experience, her personal experiences, and her personality were of much higher quality. So here's an example of somebody who is not necessarily the top of the class, but is a great candidate to come to a place like Harvard because she was so interesting and well-rounded, and she would be a great classmate for the other students in the school. A couple of cases I worked with, I worked with a student from Japan who went to the top private university, the Keio University, is the top private university in Japan. The elites get into that, and the best students, and many of them go into business career after Keio. He was interested in real estate. He came from a real estate family. His father owned 100 buildings in southern Tokyo, a very successful company, and they wanted to think about the future. They wanted to think about what would be the factors developing real estate in the future, and they wanted to go overseas. They wanted to go abroad with their investments as well, and not the father had only invested in Japan and developed in Japan. They wanted to start doing things internationally. And he came to me and said, I've got to go to Harvard Business School. I went to the top school in Japan. I have a family business I need to go for. I can only go to Harvard Business School. And I explained to him, I said, well, sure, by all means, apply to Harvard Business School if you like. They do have some programs on real estate courses and some specialists there. But it's not going to be one of their real focuses. What you really should be thinking about is where is it you can get the best program that matches your interests. And as it turns out, MIT has a program on real estate. So he applied to Harvard Business School, didn't get in. But he applied to the MIT program in real estate, and he did get in. And part of it was that, his English was good, of course, but they looked for people who could present well. They expect you to think on your feet, to stand up and be able to talk. They may pick you out of the group and say, okay, come up here and give us a presentation on what your business ideas for this particular project are. So on the spot, can you respond quickly and well? So he was a good fit for that program. So those are the kinds of things to keep in mind when you're applying to graduate professional programs. Okay, and just as a quick review, for arts and sciences, rather than professional careers, in college they look for a broad liberal arts education. For graduate school, there's an emphasis on research and the sub-area of research and the depth of understanding that you're looking for. In much of Asia and Europe, undergraduate school is to develop skills that will help you get a job. In the U.S., they tend to think of undergraduate education as a way in which you'll learn to think, as I mentioned, ask questions, debate, give presentations, but your training as a professional, your training for a job comes later when you go to graduate school. So undergraduate is for thinking and exploring and expanding your mind, and graduate school is for a job. Whereas in other parts of Asia, other parts of the world, you're going to be looking at undergraduate for job skills, and then maybe for graduate school for specialization. Okay. The actual requirements for the academic career, of course you have to have a BA to get in or to apply. They're going to look at your research proposal, your statement of purpose, your exam if you're a foreign student, TOEFL, Your transcripts. Now in your transcripts, it's not just the GPA. They look at the quality of the courses that you've taken. They look at the difficulty of the courses, a little bit like the Olympics. When you're doing, when the Olympians do gymnastics, do figure skating, they get a score based upon their technical skills, but they also get a score based upon the artistic skills, on the degree of difficulty. So they look at that as well in your transcript. It's not just, did you get your GPA in a lot of easy courses, or did you also take very difficult courses to do that? Letters of recommendation, of course, as I mentioned, are very important, because these are scholars speaking to scholars. So they really want to, and sometimes the person reading the application and reading the letter of recommendation may know the person who wrote the letter of recommendation. And they may pick up the phone and say, we're thinking about admitting this student. What do you think? Do you really think this person would be the right student for our department? So there's a certain kind of communication there that's going to be, and a way of thinking that's going to be very helpful. And it's important to think about that. When you go ask somebody for a letter of recommendation, you want to spend some time talking to them. You want to look at their background, which university did they go to, what is their area of interest, have they presented or co-written essays or articles or books with the people in the department you're applying to. That's all going to be, those are all going to be factors on how they view you and whether they'll accept you. And then some of the particulars very important. Okay, we're almost out of time here. If you have questions, we can talk about specific schools, like the applications to business school or to government institutional service schools. If you want to work at the UN, you want to work at even at a big bank, or you want to work at, which can be very international, you want to work in government, you want to become a politician, a think tank, an NGO, government schools, law schools, etc. So there are a lot of different schools, and they have specific requirements and deadlines. But if there's something you want to ask about, either generally or more specifically, I'd be happy to take questions. So are there any questions here? Yes.
What is the challenge to be a part-time student? Because now, I think after COVID, a lot of people working from home, they move around, a lot of young professionals, they even travel, take the opportunity, travel all over the world.
Yes.
If they're interested about that, and then how can they be on one spot? Go to the school or maybe work at part-time, do some job and also take courses and get the experience from there.
So that's a good question. So that's another area or development that even fits into sort of the notion of entrepreneurial development that Professor Leon spoke about earlier, where universities look at what they're doing. They say, we have all this capacity, we have long vacations, if we're not using it, we're not doing something, we have online, we can do things online, then we're missing out on our opportunity. So, to be into a formal degree program at a top university, they demand that you be there at the university and that you apply to it and be in the degree program. However, they also all offer all kinds of very interesting opportunities to be engaged with the university. They have extension schools, so you can actually earn a degree, a master's degree, an undergraduate degree part-time at these schools. You're not getting the same formal degree that the students who are through the normal admissions process have been become enrolled in the school. But you can get lectures from the professors, you can talk to other students, you can attend courses. You can do many, many courses online as well as you move around. You can do one at a time, two at a time, more. There are those opportunities. And then all of these universities also have many programs, presentations, seminars, lectures, conferences that are open to the public. I spent the longest part of my career at Harvard as the manager of the Harvard University Asia Center. And every week we had more public lectures and more activities and opportunities for visitors to come in and go out, short-term, medium-term, long-term, than you could do in 24 hours of the day. I said it was a little bit like going into a candy shop. There's so many good things that you can try, you can taste, you want to eat this and eat that. If you did them all, you'd be sick. You get sick to your stomach from too many sweets. So you can't do it all. So you can pick and choose what you want to participate in. So at whatever age, young age, old age, medium age, doesn't matter. You could participate in activities, you can take courses. Some of them can be for credit, some of them are not for credit. There's always a way to augment your education and learn more, which is a wonderful thing to do throughout your life. And there have been studies on that. I'm not a specialist in this, but people who do that tend to live longer too. So it's another way to continue to stay active, keep your mind active.